That's my best friend. That's my best friend.
FDA admits no causality between vaping and seizures. Oh, thank God they released a massive email and media campaign scaring everyone about this and then issued a retraction that's only found on some random frickin' website that no one has ever heard of. Great protection of public health, you frickin' donkeys. The damage has already been done. Every news outlet was scaremongering when the first reports of seizures came out. Now that it's been off the public's attention, those news channels are not going to waste their time reporting on it again. Which means, I'll need to add this to the list of talking points when someone comes up to me and starts off.
Did you know vaping is bad for you?
Exactly. You won't see dozens of articles on how they were wrong. You probably won't see two. Public perception has been clouded. Mission accomplished. Nicotine, like any other minor stimulant including caffeine, have the potential to induce seizures in very high and unpleasant doses and in predisposed individuals like very sensitive epileptics. Correlation does not imply direct causation, nor does it warrant demonization. Source: epileptic who has vaped and drank coffee for years. This flawed study is spreading a dangerous misconception which only fuels anti-vape propaganda. Exposing lab-grown cells to chemicals in a petri dish and extrapolating the results to draw conclusions about the effects of those chemicals on the human body is a ridiculous and disingenuous practice. Ah shite, here we go again. Please explain further, you got my attention. There was a study which was done which showed a similar result, but they also exposed lung tissue to vapor, not just dripped vape liquid on the tissue. I know that's a WebMD link, but if I just linked the actual study a lot of people wouldn't be able to decipher the wording. Myself included. If we are talking early in the morning. In both of these studies, we are presented with a conclusion that these chemicals in vape liquid or vapor itself can cause damage to healthy cells/tissue, or at least that they prevent healthy tissue from repairing damage. This is absolutely something which needs to be looked into. As much as I like looking through scientific papers with my lack of a science degree, the conclusions drawn from these papers which lead to shock headlines of vaping not as safe as we once thought are disingenuous. We don't exist in a petri dish, our lungs are far more complex than this, and these findings aren't relevant to the way e-cig vapor interacts with our lungs/body. You can drop citric acid on esophageal tissue in a petri dish and watch it die. Does that mean that Sour Patch Kids candy destroys your throat tissue? Well, there is evidence that it does erode tissue in real-world human trials, but that hypothetical study doesn't have much bearing on it. The answer lies somewhere in between. There are serious concerns with vaping. The study about heavy metals in vapors exhales at vape events is worrisome, but they didn't control a shitload of variables. What devices, what coil material, what liquid, what wattage/resistance to determine if the coil is overheating the vape liquid, all not controlled for. None of these things were noted, just samples from random 56 people at vape events. I will say that again. They got samples from 56 random people at vape events. I think that speaks for itself. I'm all for studies to prove whether or not these things are safe. I'm always skeptical of anything and everything, but these pieces picked from bogus studies are how we end up with headlines like pot kills brain cells, ignoring the fact that we just gassed monkeys until they died from oxygen deprivation, and vape liquid chemicals kill healthy lung tissue. I'm not defending vaping, or saying these risks don't exist, I'm just saying these specific studies are flawed at worst, and not relevant to the real world at best. It's like every other sentence on the 24-hour news cycle that starts with researchers say. Keep that tinfoil hat on, and understand the entire study before you draw any conclusions. Besides everything else on that vape study, there's also this. Via Constantino's Farsalinos. For those asking questions about the latest study on metal emissions from e-cigarettes, here is my comment. The significant amount of metals the authors reported they found were measured in UG/kg. In fact, they are so low that for some cases chromium and lead are calculated that you need to vape more than 100 milliliters per day in order to exceed the FDA limits for daily intake from inhalational medications. The authors once again confuse themselves and everyone else by using environmental safety limits related to exposure with every single breath, and apply them to vaping. However, humans take more than 17,000 breaths per day but only 400 to 600 puffs per day from an e-cigarette. The amounts are often on the edge of the detection threshold too, where the error is basically greater than 50% of the measurement. The problem isn't competent or incompetent scientists. It's that most of these studies are commissioned with a desired outcome in mind, so the procedure adapts to what the outcome should be. They want to show high levels of volatile chemicals in vapor? Great, run a CE4 at a very high wattage and let it vape dry, then measure the burned hit. Want to show that juice is bad for cells? Culture some cells and put juice on them directly, even though we know that's never actually going to happen. If anything, I'd argue that the scientists doing these tests are competent enough to select the types of tests required to provide the answers they're being paid to provide. The only way we'll get good science, which is not the same as competent science, is by getting impartial studies that are not funded by either side. But good luck with that, as nobody's going to do those studies if they're not getting paid. I actually agree with you both about the real-world meaning of these studies. The issue is not with the science or scientists, at least, not these scientists. Glance is another matter, but rather the bad journalism that misinforms readers about the importance of these results. That's really straining credibility. More like results are grossly misinterpreted and misreported. Science doesn't get bought today. I wonder what would happen if you put cells in a petri dish full of hot coffee. They'd probably all die, so coffee therefore must be as bad as antifreeze. I still see YouTube comments about how vape liquid has antifreeze. It's sheer like this that sticks in people's head. I heard a real person outside a Walmart say the words, "You're gonna get popcorn lung," while he lit up a GPC cigarette. I wish I was making that up.